Hey, Coach, I know you're probably implementing a lot of the same things that were run last year, but you're obviously going to want to put your little spin on the defense this year. So, how difficult that has it been for you to kind of implement your changes, considering all the pandemic and things that have gotten in the way?
It's actually not as bad as one might think, because we had a number of meetings throughout the winter, and then we took that into a period of time where we were able to do some walkthroughs with our guys. And I think that might have allowed it to click a little bit more than just delving right into full speed things. And now that we're re-implementing those things through these first few practices, it's really the third time now that they've heard some of these things, and it's starting to make sense to some of these guys. So maybe a little bit easier, to be honest with you, than it may have been in a normal year. But it's I mean, people are buying into it, they're grasping it, and it's coming along pretty good, even though it's just beginning.
Considering a bunch of other conferences have been postponing their games to the spring, and but seeing some other conferences that have been putting their sports on hold in general, does it, knowing how easily this could go south, does it give you a higher level of appreciation for the sport, knowing you're able to play it today?
I don't want to give you a kind of a hokey answer here, but I really am the kind of guy that just enjoys the process. And I enjoy coming and getting better every day. I enjoy teaching these guys. I want to surround myself with players that want to do that also. And so I'm going to just continue to do what I do until they tell me that I can't do it. Yeah, I do appreciate it. It's certainly been in the back of people's minds, but honestly, I've probably thought about it less than others. I'm going to do what they tell me to do, and until they tell me I can't do it anymore.
John Kurtz.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, what's been the impact of getting Justin Hughes back and healthy there in the middle of that defense?
Justin's a tremendous ball of energy now, and he is a vocal guy, both in terms of helping us get lined up and in terms of challenging people, which we need. Don't have a lot of those types of guys, and that's what he really brings to us. I mean, he really is our, I guess I would say, biggest cheerleader out there. I mean, he's the one that can bring that juice, and he also brings a lot of game experience. And I know that stuff doesn't show up in practice as much, but I think that's going to matter on September, whatever, when we get this thing teed up. I think the fact that he's been in the fire a little bit is going to be a big deal.
And where do you stand at defensive tackle right now, obviously, with some new faces involved there?
Couldn't be more impressed with what Eli Huggins has done, a name that probably didn't get thrown around a whole bunch. He's been very good throughout camp. Drew Wiley's been very good throughout camp, as we might have expected. He played a little bit a year ago. Jalen Pickle has been much improved, and somebody that will work into the rotation for sure. Robert Hintz is going to bring an element of explosiveness in there. He's working himself into shape a little bit. I mean, that's the biggest challenge for that position is, the lack of strength and conditioning, just because of the nature of the bigger bodies. I mean, that's the position group that probably gets taxed the fastest out there. And, the more they get into shape, the more we're starting to see what some of these guys can truly do. And I would say those four guys will factor prominently into the mix.
Kellis.
Hey, Joe, good to see you again. Not only do you have Justin back, but it seems like it's kind of a neat deal that he gets to play with Elijah at linebacker, a former high school teammate of his. What's that like to have two guys who know each other so well and have been around the system so long at the same spot?
Outstanding. They work really well together. They work off of each other very well. And I think the fact that Eli had played Mike last year, which is a position where we ask for a lot of communication, a lot of helping others, a lot of setting the front, doing those kind of things. The fact that he had to do some of that and get out of his comfort zone a year ago is helping him now in a position where he doesn't have to do that. So what I mean by that is Justin can rely on him a little bit to help him if there's a confusing picture or something. So those two are always working off of each other. I mean, Eli Sullivan's a different animal now. I mean, Eli Sullivan is an explosive football player. This is going to be a great big year for that guy.
I also wanted to see who are maybe some of the new faces who are factoring in your secondary right now.
TJ Smith at nickel is a guy as a true freshman, and he was an early enrollee, which normally would give you a leg up. But the fact that, he didn't get March, April, May to do anything, I don't know how much that helped him, but it really matters to him. And he did not waste that time. And so he has gotten himself into the picture simply because of his desire and hard work. But as a true freshman, he's a guy that could be in the mix. Will Jones is a guy that will be in the mix as a nickel. Redshirted a year ago, and we expected to have a big year out of him, and he's producing. Ross Elder is a guy that's done a phenomenal job so far through camp. And not to mention in the corner position, Keandre Thomas, a transfer, along with Justin Gardner. Two guys that have come in and transferred in, and Keandre benefits from the fact that he came from the University of Minnesota, where he's been in a program and been in a system, and had some complexity in the defense, and because of that, I think he's been able to pick things up really quickly. There'll be a lot of fresh faces back there this year, not to mention some of the old dogs as well.
Scott Fritchen.
Yeah. Hey, Joe. From what I understand, from what I'm able to pick up and piece together so far, maybe A.J. Parker and Lance Robinson at cornerback, and Jerron and Wayne Jones at safety, and maybe Walter Neal at nickel. Is that accurate?
Well, I mean, those guys are certainly going to factor into it. I'd say it's an ongoing competition right now, to be honest with you. I really would. I think it's a lot closer. I would say that would have been the depth chart heading into camp. I think some of those spots are a lot closer than people might think. And for some of the names that I just mentioned, Keandre Thomas is going to factor into that. A Will Jones, a TJ Smith are going to factor into that. A Ross Elder, a Ryan Hennington, a Tyrone Lewis. I mean, those guys all have Brock Monty. I mean, all those guys are guys that are in the mix, and that's not just me talking. That's legitimately out there. I mean, there's days where, maybe, for example, at the corner position, maybe Keandre Thomas outshines everybody else at that position on Tuesday, and then Wednesday it's Lance Robinson, and Thursday it's A.J. Parker. That's something that we probably didn't have a year ago, and that's a refreshing deal because we're going to need that depth heading into this season.
And then one of the first names that Chris mentioned yesterday when he talked about players that were standing out is Khaleed Duke. What has he done to jump on the scene?
Yeah, I mean, the progress that he's made in a year with Coach Wyatt is unbelievable. Just playing at a different speed than everybody else is right now. I mean, they're having a hard time blocking him in the run game and the pass game. And that's what we really need. I mean, we weren't able to generate a ton of pressure with 4 last year, in part because of injury, in part because of personnel. It just that wasn't our strong suit. But the fact that he stepped up and been able to do that a little bit might enable us to move some guys around and in some third down situations, get the 4 best pass rushers out there. And he's certainly emerged as one of those 4, which we weren't sure of prior to this camp.
Derek Young.
Yeah, a lot of my questions been asked, but something I'm interested in is maybe hearing about defensive end Tyrone Tolini, who is a JUCO addition for you guys. I think he's already 24 years old. So what kind of impact are you expecting from him, and perhaps when? Because I know he hasn't played a ton of football either.
Also a guy that was just getting started in the wintertime, before things shut down. And in the meetings throughout the summer, we were concerned about the amount of information that he was able to retain. It was so new to him, the system, the terminology, everything. And it really had him puzzled, to be honest with you. And stepping ahead then into camp, he's been outstanding. I mean, he's put a lot of effort into that. Unfortunately, had a little setback the other day with a finger, I believe it was. And, we'll have him back. He won't be out of the mix very long, but he is, I would anticipate him being potentially one of those guys that I mentioned that can be a third down pass rush guy. And he's just so strong. Once he starts to figure out some of his keys in the run game, he's going to be an every down guy for us, probably this year.
Got time for only two more, Ryan Black and then Adam Meyer. Go ahead, Ryan.
Hey, Coach Klanderman, how you doing this morning?
What's up?
Hey, well, I guess my question is, and it kind of, you've already gotten quite a few about kind of on this topic, is with Jonathan Alexander not playing this season, who does that maybe benefit the most in terms of who's going to be taking a lot of those reps that maybe he would have been getting?
Fortunately at that position, as I said before, we really do have a lot of guys that I feel comfortable with, guys that I trust. We had already kind of made the move. Jerron McPherson played nickel a year ago, which was not his natural position. He did it out of necessity because he was one of our best 11. We knew we had to get him out there. And even though he didn't necessarily fit the profile of what we were, wanting to have out of a nickel, he scrapped it up enough to be a good player there. But we had moved him to the same position that Jonathan was at. And so, there was already a competition there. And so it probably, he will take the lion's share of those reps, as will Ross Elder. We also took Ryan Hennington from the offensive side of the ball and moved him to safety. And he's a guy that's just taken the bull by the horns and has learned and has grown immensely. Again, haven't seen him in the fire, but from what he's done through the first few days here, he's been a guy that will factor into it also. But everybody is going to benefit from those reps, and obviously don't want to lose anybody, but I feel comfortable with the depth at that position.
And then I guess we had heard during the spring that A.J. Parker had at least gotten closer to 100%. How has he already looked through the first few days of camp?
I've not noticed any ill effects from his ankle. I mean, he's been getting in and out of breaks, has been playing very good man coverage, has done a great job of being a leader. AJ's kind of a guy that keeps to himself a little bit. And to see him work with T. Denson, to see him work with Justin Gardner, to see him take some of those guys that are new and trying to teach them and bring them along in the package has been very encouraging.
Last one here, Adam Meyer.
Coach, defense is so important, and Elijah Sullivan and Justin Hughes, two senior leaders, they have said that they want to win the Big 12 championship this year to go out. And in the Big 12, you have high-powered offenses like Oklahoma. You have Oklahoma State, who has Chuba Howard. How do you feel about this defense as a whole going up against these high-powered Big 12 offenses?
Just a play at a time, and it truly is all about the process. I don't worry about, who we're playing or how many points they score. What really matters is our execution. Do we get aligned? Do we get our eyes right? Do we play fast? And if we do that, are we going to win every 50-50 battle that's out there? No, we're not going to. There's going to be a time when a corner can play technique perfectly and he's going to get a ball caught on him. There's going to be a time when we're going to have the play fit up and we're going to miss a tackle. And that stuff happens. But what we can't do and what we're working to eliminate is any mistake that gives somebody a free play. And against these high-powered offenses, the one thing that we want to make them do is we want to make them earn everything that they get. And you're right. These teams are good enough to be able to earn it sometimes, but they're not going to be good enough to be able to earn it. And I mean, we're not going to be able to stop them if we're giving them free plays. Can they beat us if we make them earn everything? It makes it a little bit more difficult for them.